Chapter 32.2 You are listening at novelfull.audio. EP.32.2, Pride number 1032, Pride of the Beast number 1. This wasn't really my intention, but it still felt pretty good when my experience points went up. Was this also considered skinship? Anyway, here it is. I took a peek here before. The place Elga guided me to was a common adventurer's inn that doubled as a tavern on the first floor and an inn on the second and third floors. Should I say that it reminded me of the Nympha's Ditch? I will sacrifice 5 pawns to summon the obelisk's giant pawn. With this, your night is annihilated. Hueek. There were already many customers on the first floor. Some were dueling in card games, playing chess, drinking alcohol, or singing merry songs. I frowned as this chaotic atmosphere did not fit the image of the lioness family's young lady. But when Elga saw it, she actually smiled while revealing her fangs. Elga even laughed as if she was very excited. Okay, there are a lot of customers. It means that this place is a hidden gem. She then entered the tavern with the sharp sound of her glass shoes. At Elga's appearance, I could feel the drunkard's eyes turning to us in an instant. Hey, look! Who is she? Has there ever been such a pretty girl around here? I don't know. She looks like the daughter of a noble family. Wait, no. Why would the daughter of an aristocrat come here? Perhaps she's a high-class courtesan. There's also a servant next to her. Then, could it be Myrna Draco? I've been told that the only daughter of the Draco family would come to Gracia. The sudden appearance of a beauty would drive all kinds of gazes and speculations. I also felt this when I was traveling with Era. Those dazzling women kept on attracting more attention than necessary. And, everyone always took me for a servant. A man and a woman went together, but no one thought they were lovers. This actually made me feel a bit resentful. Here, please take a seat. Guided by the cheerful waiter, Elga and I sat down on the table. Despite being rubbed clean with a cloth, it was still a little bit slippery because of some leftover oil. Here's the menu, you can call me once you've picked your likings. Looking at the menu, the most expensive food here was pork for 10 copper coins. 5 copper coins for stew. 3 copper coins for beer. This kinda reminded me of those cheap shops near the university in many ways. What would be good? I'm not good at picking things. I watched Elga peer through the wooden menu board. Finally, I couldn't stand it any longer and said. I didn't expect Elga.nim to eat these types of commoners' food. What, you think I'm gonna sip wine, cut my meat with a knife, and wipe my mouth with a handkerchief? Actually, yes. After all, Elga.nim is a young lady from a large family. Luxurious things usually pair with you. Well, that's also true. Of course, I can't really blame you for thinking that way. My noble elegance can be misleading, after all. Usually, people saying something like that would look arrogant, yet this wasn't the case with Elga. Rather, she was actually as elegant as her claim. But, there were many times when I had to eat tasteless jerky while on expeditions. This place is a hotel if you compare it to a battlefield full of corpses. Oh, right. She was in the army. Anywhere would be better when compared to the battlefield. In the end, Elga ordered some meat cooked on a hot stone plate, which she took a slice from and ate. It was a dish similar to thick pork belly. It was sizzling with juices and tasted better than expected. The juicy meat was cut into large chunks before getting dipped in a sauce similar to samjang, which was delicious. The cuisine of Gracia was indeed appetizing. After eating 2 bowls, Elga ordered another one. Where did all that food go? Her chest. Surururu. Naturally, my eyes turned towards Elga's chest. Despite being covered by a dress, yesterday's licking and sucking made me feel hot just looking at it. If only I had the time to appreciate it more deeply. It was really cute and nymph-friendly. No, what even was nymph-friendly? Why was I thinking this way? Soon, I let go of these thoughts and came to my senses. After emptying the bowl, Elga got up from her seat. She wiped the oil off her lips with her fingertips. Alright, let's go. Are we going shopping again? Do you have more items to buy? No, I'm done shopping. Rather, didn't I promise you? Since you followed my orders well today, I'll give you a reward. Ah. Boss, do you have a room upstairs? Elga then skillfully rented a room from the inn owner, which was quite expected. The room was located in the corner of the second floor. It had a wardrobe, a table, a chair, a window. No, wait, I didn't actually care about those furniture. My attention was on the large bed that could accommodate 2 people. The duvet even looked like it had just been washed. Being alone with a woman in a room like this made me nervous. Surak. Elga took off the white lion's bristle cap and hung it in the corner. She then tied her hair back with both arms behind her head. Suk. Thanks to this, Elga's smooth and white armpits entered my sight. If I did well, would I be able to touch her wrists again? No matter how much I thought about it, that was indeed a very nymph-friendly, beautiful chest. I was craving it so badly. What a very nymph-like idea. Gain job experience for half fairy, plus 50 job. Half fairy plus 1 level. Half fairy LV 3 LV for you can do more nymph-like behaviors and ways of thinking. Seriously, what was this half fairy thing? Its experience points just kept shooting up from time to time. Nevertheless, it should be good to have more experience points, right? Anyway, if I did well, I could see those soft marshmallows again, at least, I was expecting so. However, Elga's blue eyes narrowed like a beast hunting for prey. What she said next was a bit different from my thought. Theo Gospel, no matter how much I think about it, this doesn't seem fair to me. As the eldest daughter of the lioness family, it feels a bit humiliating that I had to be the one showing myself to you. What are you trying to say? Hearing this, Elga's eyes narrowed even further. Chapter 33.1 You are listening at novelfull.audio. 19, EP.33.1, Pride of the Beast number 2033, Pride of the Beast number 2 inside a cheap inn that did not suit the presence of a noble family. Elga and I were alone in one of its rooms, amidst the creaking hardwood floors and crooked nails in the furniture. Elga then slowly approached me with narrowed eyes. I was thinking about it all last night. And it didn't seem fair that you were the only one looking at me. Suk. Having said so, she gently nudged me on the shoulder. Although it was only slight, her strength far surpassed mine. Thus, I found myself falling backwards onto the bed. Elga.nim, that's why, I want to see you too, Theo Gospel. And judge whether or not you are a man fit for the lioness family. You mean you've been thinking about my body the entire night? Elga immediately shut her mouth, seemingly caught off guard. But she soon frowned like an angry Karen and said, that's not what's important right now. Suk. Her hand then went straight for my shirt. However, instead of undressing me, Elga just grabbed the hem and pulled. Jijijik. She ripped my silver silk shirt, exposing my upper body. Ah. Somehow, it was quite embarrassing to show a woman my bare body. As I thought, you don't train at all. You have no muscles. Suk. Elga's fingers ran from my shoulders to my chest, before making their way towards my smooth belly. I felt funny since, obviously, I wasn't used to the feeling of a slender, soft finger gliding through my skin. Look. How could this bear the name of the lionesses? It's just so soft. I felt a little bad being toyed with like this. I am a half nymph, which means that I can't get muscles easily. Right, a half nymph. Well, guess what? I did some research on mixed races. Elga.nim actually studied half nymphs. Yes. They like candy. They like to talk loudly. And most importantly, they are adults that like to be childish. Just like you, Theo Gospel. Was I really like that? Theo, you lack manliness. And most importantly, you're of a mixed race. Elga suddenly stopped talking midway, which made me restless. Normally, Elga would just say whatever she wanted. So when she just paused, I couldn't help but focus more on her words. What is wrong with being a mixed race? It is said that, even though mixed races look like men, they often do not function properly. Ah, you saw my body, so I will also have to look at yours to make it fair. This is an act that satisfies medical and biological academic curiosity. Kneeling in front of the bed, Elga quickly began to untie the knot on my pants. No, wait. Stay still. My pants were helplessly pulled down, finally letting the hidden dragon get some fresh air after being stuck inside the cave all day long. Elga, whose nose was directly facing my brother, shut her mouth as if she was at a loss for words. Despite the new feeling I had, it was still quite shameful that my asset was shown to a woman. It was totally different when the situation was reversed. Anyway, Elga continued to be silent. Feeling anxious, I decided to open my mouth. I just wanted to say something and break the silence. Are you surprised by how big it is? It's bigger than what I was told. What's with this size? Yup, Elga was definitely at a loss for words. Her predatory look was now replaced with fear. To be honest, my package was indeed a bit big. If a girl were to know that such a thing was going inside her belly, she would have turned pale and screamed, how could something this size fit? Was Elga feeling like that? Looking at her stunned face, I suddenly felt mischievous and wanted to strike back at Elga. So, like the descendant of the demon king Angmar that I was, my mouth deviously said. Then, would you like to touch it? By your words, it wouldn't be fair to just look, right? I was going to do that even if you didn't say anything. After all, you did not only look but even touched me. Moreover, I can't tell if that thing could work properly just by looking at it. After her confident speech, Elga carefully grabbed the hilt of my sword with both hands. You have tricked the opponent with your evil schemes. Gain job experience for tutor. Plus 50. Good, my experience points went up. To be specific, I not only touched, but also licked and sucked. So, in terms of fairness, shouldn't she also return the favor? Elga was weak against advances, so if I asked with sincerity and enthusiasm, she might actually do it. This is. Lifting her index finger, Elga poked the awakened dragon. She was like an adolescent girl seeing a man's thing for the first time. In fact, this was probably the case. After all, the lioness family was pretty conservative about sex education. So, during the days when I was still a slave, Elga always tried to satisfy her soul curiosity through me. I was the best toy for the curious Elga. Even now, this still seemed to hold true. In other words, the current me could be said to have a role similar to a training aid used in sex education. It's way too hard. Does it even need to be this hard? Elga looked a little scared of the rigidity on this otherwise feminine body. Just to think that this was the same girl who criticized me harshly for being soft and fluffy. Seeing a chance to get revenge, I jokingly said in a vulgar language. Since this little fellow has the duty to pierce a woman's vag.na, he has to be firm. Isn't this quite manly? Chapter 33.2 You are listening at novelfull.audio. 19, EP.33.2, Pride of the Beast number 2033, Pride of the Beast number 2. At my words, Elga frowned and blushed. Probably because she had the vag.na that I was talking about. It was only after a while did her frown disappear. Quack. Elga suddenly gripped the hilt of my sword, making me lean forward. It was more appropriate to call her action a rough touch rather than a caress. Ugh. Then, seeing me like that, Elga burst into laughter. No matter how hard it is, it's still a weakness. What's so manly about this? N it. I was starting to get frustrated. Right, f.ck it, no matter what happened, I would definitely feed Elga my hot dog. However, as I had no experience in this kind of stuff, I didn't know how to entice Elga into doing so. I knew what the ingredients, me and Elga, and the result, fella.io, were. But what about the cooking process in the middle? You're weak. Sook, sook. Elga's hand then slowly stroked my dick. From top to bottom. Even though I hadn't told her, she seemed to already know how to make men happy. Was it instinct? Sook, sook. Sook. Of course, her movement was very clumsy. The timing and speed didn't match. Wouldn't it take me more than an hour to shoot if things continued like this? On the other hand, Elga was squatting in front of me while Jack.ing me off. Meanwhile, I was sitting on the bed and looking down at her. This exciting view was enough of a reward for the injustice and sorrow that I had suffered. Oddly enough, I felt a sense of conquest as a man. Perhaps, this was also instinct. Sook sook, sook. Still moving her hand up and down slowly, Elga then said. If I continue with this, you're going to do it, right? What do you mean? You know what I mean. Guys would eject white fluid when they feel good, kinda like peeing. You're going to do that too, right? Something like that. Elga had some of her own Azul knowledge. Well, the curious Elga probably looked it up in a book or observed the prisoners of war. However, knowledge without actual practice would often result in clumsiness. Right now, Elga was exactly like that. Maybe I could use this. Thinking so, I said. That thing will indeed happen when men feel good. But Elga.nim's hands are a bit clumsy, so I don't think I'll be able to reach that point. I'm clumsy. Elga frowned. Since the prideful Elga had a strong desire to compete, I thought that by challenging her like this, she would definitely bite my fishing line. How am I clumsy? Your method is wrong. Just using your hand is not enough. In the first place, the pen.s is something that goes inside the vag.na. So, to ejacu.8, it needs an environment similar to avag.na. An environment similar to the vag.na. Elga constantly repeated those words, like a student in a lecture. An environment similar to the vag.na. The wise Elga.nim should be able to quickly find the answer. Elga.nim has it too, a hole similar to the vag.na. It's a place with moist and soft mucous membranes. Did my bait work? Suddenly, Elga's face lit up. I got it. It's the boo. Did I get it right? No. The answer was, mouth. However, I pretended that it was correct. In fact, I might be able to try something even more amazing than expected. Elga.nim is correct. Heh. You thought I wouldn't know. Of course, I knew that. No, wait. Then. Elga immediately paused. She must have realized that she had to stimulate my d.ck using her .ss. Surururu. Elga's golden hair, which was tied in a ponytail, suddenly propped up into the sky as if it was attracted to static electricity. Are you crazy? You dare make me, the eldest daughter of the lioness family, do something like that? I guess it was too much of a stretch. It felt like the door, which had been slightly opened, was closed again. How stuffy. Just another step to reach happiness. Yet, I still needed to cross to the other side of the ditch. It was so close, yet so far. Would the reconstruction of the Angmar family collapse just like this? Was I going to end up as the last Angmar in the end? No. That can't be. Racking my brain for dear life, I concluded that there were two methods that would work best against Elga. appealing for her affection and forcefully pushing forward. Or provoking Elga's competitive spirit. The former was a last resort, and the latter was probably the best option. Thus, I decided to trust my level 8 actor and pretended to be calm. As expected, it seems that it's still too early for Elga.nim, what? Let's stop here and bury what happened today. We should just act like nothing happened. Sook. I put on my pants and got up from my seat. What are you doing now? Elga shouted as if embarrassed by my actions, yet she didn't restrain or stop me. Passing by Elga, I deliberately headed towards the doorway, one step at a time. Creak. 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 Due to the excessively slow pace, the wooden floor started creaking loudly. Then, I turned the doorknob in front of me so slowly that it could be considered to have been frozen in time. Jirik, Jirik, Jirik. Why weren't you stopping me? Was it too much of a gamble? Could this really be the end? Goodbye, Elga.nim. I said my farewell to Elga before fully turning the doorknob. I could only hear Elga's heavy breathing from behind. But I didn't know what kind of expression she was making. I'm really going. With this, I could no longer meet Elga.nim alone. Hey, you, are you running away now? Utek. My hand stopped at Elga's roar. I felt like laughing out loud, but thanks to the power of the level 8 actor, I was able to endure it somehow. Me. Wasn't it Elga.nim who ran away? When have I done that? How dare a coward try to stigmatize me as a fugitive? Turning my head, I saw a red-faced Elga glaring at me. She looked adorable right now. Chapter 34.1 You are listening at Novel Full.audio. 19, EP.34.1, Pride of the Beast number 3034, Pride of the Beast number 3 Everyone knew who Elga von Lioness, the daughter of a great house, was. She grew up in a family whose wealth could compare to the kingdom's royal family. From a young age, she could obtain everything she wanted. But there were things Elga couldn't have. And those were living beings. As a child, Elga had once received a small lion cub the size of a cat. It was a gift from her father. Yung. Come, let's eat pineapple pizza. Krung. Elga treated the small lion cub like a cat, feeding and taking it for a walk. Naturally, the lion cub also followed Elga around. However, in spite of her care, the lion cub Yang suddenly fell ill one day and died. Life disappeared before those blue eyes. Kyuk, Yang. Elga's father then said to the sad girl. A lion cannot become a cat. They can't be tied to a leash or locked up in a cage. Otherwise, they're going to die. The same is true for our lioness family. Back then, Elga was too young to understand what her father was talking about. She only felt sadness and regret for the life that died. The life which she gave so much affection and care for. On that day, Elga realized for the first time that there were things in the world even the eldest daughter of the lioness family could not have. Just about a year ago, this memory resurfaced in Elga's mind. It was when she found a boy locked up in a cage. Are you Elga? You have to buy me. Because I can see the future. Her blue eyes looked at the life which was locked up in an iron cage. The scene made her think of the past. And so, Elga bought a slave, thinking she was doing well. But one day, even that slave was taken away by her cousin, the queen. The older and more mature Elga, who had experienced many separations, was still not used to having something leave her arms. Yang. Her mother. And even her slave had left her. Hence, Elga felt some kind of anger as her former slave tried to open the door. He wanted to leave her twice. For whatever reason, it felt like she would never be able to see him again once he exited that door. So, Elga roared. Hey, you punk! Where do you think you're going? But, Elga.nim. Silence. Come here right now. Sit back up on the bed. This is an order. Elga directed forcefully. The world must obey her command. However, she was also anxious of what would happen if her former slave refused and continued to open the door. After all, this guy was now the servant of Queen Era. There was really no way for Elga to enforce her will on him anymore. Sook. But when her former slave, Theo Gospel, took his hand away from the doorknob and sat back to the bed as ordered, Elga felt a kind of euphoria. The joy of being able to control people at will. However, she did not show any of that on her face. Instead, the angry Elga frowned and said, "You think I'm a coward? Look back at yourself, Theo Gospel. You are running away because you are afraid of carrying the weight of the lioness family." Her slave Theo was silent. Elga then said to her slave, in an uptight and angry voice, "Take off your pants." "Jusum, Jusum." Hearing this, her slave crouched and took off his pants. He acted just like a slave, so Elga was even more satisfied. Bulkown, Boltok, Boltok. Soon, she could see the hard erect dot-on of his genital. That thing had somehow managed to reach his navel. Seeing this sight again, Elga secretly took a deep breath. She simply could not get used to its size, no matter how many times she looked at it. Why was this damn thing so big? Were other men's the same size? She even felt like it was somehow bigger than before. Would that really go into a woman's body? She didn't know. Because her father Reinhardt would not allow her to have any sexual contact. Anyway. Elga wondered how her slave Theo, who had a soft body, could hide such a thing between his legs. His genitalia, she just couldn't understand why it swelled so big. However, it was also true that her curiosity and interest were rising. She had overheard some jokes from the soldiers, who claimed that the bigger and harder it was, the better. Suddenly, her slave Theo said, "Is it too much for Elga?" What? Her slave was making fun of her. Did he really want to anger Elga? But, how would one get that stuff into their body? It looked painful to even try. In fact, it would probably hurt as much as being stabbed by a knife. No, that thing was thick, so it would be even worse. Yet, she couldn't stop her boiling curiosity. How could it look like that? It was even hot to the touch. If she rubbed that on her ussy, it would probably feel even better than using fingers. And once it went into her vag.na. Uxin, Uxin. Elga then felt a tingling sensation. As if something strange in her lower belly was spreading all over her body. This was because, after her slave Theo mentioned the word vag.na several times, Elga somehow became conscious of the little empty space inside her. That feeling when your body started heating up, what was it called? Elga trembled as her untouched end. Please stood firm. Meanwhile, under her skirt, some kind of liquid started dripping down her thighs. In Elga's heated state, she wondered what she would do if her slave asked for something. Her slave, who had the same blue eyes like her mother. Chapter 34.2 You are listening at Novel Full.audio. 19, EP.34.2, Pride of the Beast number 3034, Pride of the Beast number 3 What, why weren't you saying anything? Theo cautiously looked at Elga, whose .exe seemed to have stopped working. She told him to take off his pants, so he took them off. But after that, Elga didn't say anything else. She just stared at him with a frown. She must have been angry at him for trying to leave. Since then, there had been no clear actions from her. To be honest, Theo was a little anxious. Moreover, his Eric cock was starting to take a toll on him. The erect on had lasted for a long time, causing his lower abdomen to get a little stiff and painful. He needed to get this resolved quickly. Hence, he tried to make an offer that would be acceptable to the proud Elga. Well. Elga finally responded. With that momentum, I continued. Well, it would be impossible to skip straight to insertion. We need to prepare and lube things up first. Lube things up. It will be much easier to insert if you apply something smooth and sticky, such as lotion or gel. But unfortunately, there is nothing like that here. Saruk. I could see Elga's sapphire-blue eyes moving around anxiously. So, I said to her. Nevertheless, you can use saliva instead. Of course, the wise Elga.nim should have already known this. Saliva. That's right, you can lick it with your mouth. With my mouth. There was a saying, you can't be satisfied with just the first drink. As a novice at dating, I didn't even consider the possibility of having sex with Elga right on the first day, let alone cuing inside her stomach. After all, I knew myself well. If I were a playboy like that, my life would have been much easier. Hence, I realized the need to take it slow. There was no reason to be hasty, just take one step at a time. In that sense, I was looking for various ways to achieve the goal of having a fella. Today. You will need to lick my dick. With your mouth. And I was also deliberately using vulgar words. My experience points weren't going up. However, if the deed went well, wouldn't it max out Casanova's experience points all at once and give me a level up? I very much looked forward to it. Now, Elga's reaction would determine the rest. Elga just kept staring at my package without showing whether she was angry or serious. Her reaction, or lack thereof, was not a good sign. Should I just ask her for it? No, that would be the last resort. While I was lost in my thoughts. I know that too. It's called fella.io. Elga knelt in front of me and brought my dick closer. The cock seemed to cast a shadow on her face, which was a sight to behold. But the next scene was even better. Elga's mouth began to open, before she slowly gobbled the tip of my sword. The moment her soft lips touched my johns, it felt like fireworks had set off inside my head. You shouldn't use your teeth. Else, it would hurt. Elga, kneeling between my legs, steadily stuffed her mouth with my hot dog. When it was halfway in, Elga frowned slightly. She seemed to have found it difficult to breathe. You can slowly move your chin and use your tongue. It was my first time getting a fella.io, but I did know how to make it feel better. Just looking down at Elga devouring my cock. With such passion, it made me so excited. I felt like I could ejaculate at any moment. Churup, how, curup, hup, shurup. Elga's head began to slowly move as she started licking. The young lady of a great marquis, the enemy of Angmar, was currently sucking me off. It gave me the greatest sense of conquest. Was this the feeling of a conqueror? Sook. I put my hand on Elga's soft hair. You are doing very well. As expected of Elga.nim. Hearing that, Elga's body seemed to tremble a little. Did my compliment make her feel good? But then again, who wouldn't like compliments? I also spent time stroking Elga's hair or her red flushed ears. Ong. Hey. What's wrong? Don't touch my ears. Why? Do I even have to explain why? It looked like her ears were Erigino de zones. Then, there was nothing we could do about that. Gurup, Urup, Shurup. Hugh. After a few minutes of Elga stimulating my cock, a familiar feeling arose. Churup, Urup, ha. Shurup, Kairup, Shurup. You're doing really well. You sure have talent. Of course, who do you think you are talking to? You thought there was something I couldn't do. Elga's facade was a little annoying, but the way she gazed at my face was nice. After all, visual stimulation was a thing as well. Today, I also learned that fella.io wasn't as overwhelming as I thought. I was only a few steps away from ejaculation. It felt like I was walking back and forth at the finish line that was not too far away. Gyurup, Huru, Arup, Ha. De-en, when are you going to do it? My jaw is starting to hurt. Almost there, you're doing a really good job. Just a little more. Ha. Shurup, Kayurup. Kayurup. Ha. Esul pleasure. A sense of superiority and domination over the opposite gender. And a kind of confirmation of love. After all, a woman was deliberately doing such a difficult and cumbersome act for me. Together, all of these things formed a paradise. A paradise which was difficult to explain. Had I ever felt so good? Perhaps, this was why everyone liked Fella.ios. Not knowing this sooner made me feel like I'd missed out on a lot in life. Now, I wanted to receive something like this every day. But, there was one thing I was curious about. How good would real sex feel? That image of me holding Elga's plump body and piercing my sword through her shield. Her trembling legs spread wide and wrapped around my waist. Thinking of this, I felt like I couldn't just end it here. Chapter 35.1 You are listening at novelfull.audio. 19, EP.35.1, Pride of the Beast number 4035, Pride of the Beast number 4 For me, the progress of skinship was as follows. Holding hands, hugging and kissing skinship such as Fella.io or fondling.wrists SX marriage. I didn't know how real lovers proceeded with skinship, but this was my version. Fella.io was more psychologically acceptable than SX where women had to spread their legs wide. In the same sense, hugs and kisses required less courage than Fella.io. Then, based on my calculations, I was one step behind the SX stage. Just another step. But how the I would one go about crossing that line? This singular step was as high as Mount Everest. It did not give me a chance to proceed at all. If the man said, now that we've done Fella.io, let's have SX, and the woman agreed with, okay, did that mean we could move forward? Impossible. That was never going to happen. Of course, there could be couples like such, but that was beside the point. Anyway, what needed to go in between Fella.io and SX? A good mood. Some awkward silence and a little bit of courage induced by alcohol. I just didn't know. Let's see, did I have any memories that might help? The AVs I'd been watching were honestly of no use. After all, those dudes just got a clock that stopped time and skipped all the other steps of SX. There, pressing a button SX. It ended in just 2 steps. I'd watched a lot of those funny videos. Anyway, here I was, in the same situation. This was quite strange, now that I thought about it. Gyurup, Arup, Ha. Hey, when are you going to release it? Currently, Elga had my dick in her mouth. When we first met, it was difficult for me to even dare look at her face. I could not help but get teary, thinking about the various adversaries and hardships I went through to reach this point. Did Elga like me during that time? After all, no one would do this to a man they didn't even like. But I definitely never heard Elga say she liked me or not. I was just guessing in the dark here. Thinking about this, I suddenly wanted to ask Elga about it. Do you like me? For a beginner at love like me, this was perhaps the manifestation of my insecurity and anxiety, as well as longing and confirmation of affection. But what could I do, even if I was curious? It was not possible to just ask. Because, if she said no, it would definitely be quite a shock. Then, suddenly, the direction of my thinking changed. What about me? Did I like Elga? Come to think of it, I never really thought about my feelings regarding her. I was not in a position or had the chance to do so either. Thus, I never really considered it. But now, looking at things objectively, Elga was pretty and her chest was big. She was glamorously beautiful. Her wealth was so great that I could not simply look at her, and the abilities she possessed were also outstanding. Elga's personality was a bit rough, but she could cut down barbarians like cabbages. Overall, she was just way out of my league. For the original me, it would have felt disrespectful to even raise my head in her direction. And yet, such a woman allowed me to kiss her and suck on dem itties. Now, she was even licking and sucking my cock, wanting me to ejaculate. Hey, when is it coming? Ha. Sup. My jaw hurts now. There was no reason not to fall in love with Elga. But, wasn't this closer to libido than affection? With this in mind, I felt a little guilty about whether it was really okay to have my first time with such a girl. Gaduk. Heek. Suddenly, the feeling of pain shooting up from my johns made me cry out. Elga, this f.king.ich, just bit my dick. What the hell are you doing? Humph, hearing my question, Elga simply snorted and spat my s-men out of her mouth. The smug expression on her face was quite funny, especially when I even considered liking Elga. That was it. I, Theo Almar, might not know whether I was the Demon King's grandson or son. But, this naughty lioness girl, I shall use you as my baby maker. You brought this on yourself. For Elga, there was no need for a sweet mood or events that lovers normally had. Now, there would only be conquest, domination and submission. Sook. I grabbed Elga's head. What are you doing? Yup. And forcibly shoved my pen.s into her mouth. Despite her embarrassment, Elga still opened her mouth wide so that her teeth would not touch my little treasure. I wondered what I would do if she actually bit it, but luckily she didn't. Yup, shurup, yuyuf. I used Elga's mouth like an onaho.e. Grabbing her tied-up hair and pulling it back and forth quite roughly. Guruk, gurup, gururuk, kalrak, hey, do you really have a death wish? Of course, when I saw that she was having a hard time breathing, I let go of her. Then, Elga got up and looked at me like she was really angry. At this time, I decided to show off my skills as a level 8 actor. Elga.nim, I like you. What? So suddenly. Make me a man of the lionesses. That's, what are you saying? Elga seemed perplexed by the unexpected attack. Heart.piercing temptation. Job. Casanova 1 plus level Casanova LV for LV, 5 you can now be more explicit. Soulful acting. Job. Actor 1 plus level actor LV 8 LV 9 your skills have reached the realm where you can deceive even yourself. Notifications came to mind, but I didn't have time to worry about such things. All I could see right now was Elga von Lioness. As if embarrassed by my serious confession, Elga began to cover her chest with her hand. I also got up from my seat and approached. And then, I kissed her. Mwat, Hugh, Hyup, Shuru, Huyu. I was acting like a playboy that I had envisioned in my head. You might wonder, what would the playboy Theo Gospel do in this situation? If he was such a lover boy, he would have taken Elga's soul with a kiss. Then, he would gently lay her down on the bed, before secretly undressing her piece by piece. And it was exactly what I did. As Elga fell on the soft bed, her chest was trembling. Cholrong, cholrong. Shurup, shurup, haljak, shurup. While my hand trailed down her chest, I continued to alternate between softly and violently attacking her lips. Surek. I really wanted to take off her dress immediately, but in this case, it would just raise her guard more than necessary. Moreover, taking the dress off might not be easy due to the corset structure on its back. Suruk, suruk. Hey, oh, my clothes. Wait, stop. Elga, who was under me, tried to resist. Was it too early to expose the wrists? My tongue then went from Elga's lips down to the sides of her face and slender neck. Then, I bit her flushed red ear. Hot. T/N. Thank you to my supporters who are keeping me fed and paying tuition through college. I really appreciate you all. Chapter 35.2 You are listening at Novel Full.audio. 19, EP.35.2, Pride of the Beast number 4035, Pride of the Beast number 4. I could feel a lot of tension in Elga's body. It seemed like she could do nothing but tremble, as if she'd been struck by lightning. Now what? What would Playboy Theo do next? If it was Playboy Theo, the lady hunter, he would probably take off his partner's panty skillfully. And so, I raised my upper body and reached out to Elga's leg. Her thighs were already drenched in liquid, but I pretended not to notice and pulled her panty down. No. You bastard, so suddenly. However, it appeared that Elga still had the power to resist. Though, instead of a violent resistance, she only did so verbally. This was what Playboy Theo had expected. In Elga's heart was a burning passion that must be quenched. So, I pulled her wet underwear down while laying her on the bed. I then dug in between Elga's legs, which were slightly spread out in an M shape, and pressed on top of her. Malrang, malrang. Elga's large chest cushioned mine. It felt warm. It would have been nice if I could just touch her chest at will. Then again, wasn't this Elga's first time? Since that was the case, if I just touched her wrists and inserted my little guy right then and there, Elga might react negatively and kick me away. Therefore, I thought that it would be better to slowly caress her and rinse the rice first. Thus, when the cooking time came, Elga would not be afraid and back out. Elga.nim, I will kiss you. And so, I kissed Elga's lips. Elga's anxiously flailing hands were also held against the bed, to prevent her from resisting. Yunjunjit, Shurup, Kairup, Shurup, how dare you, this guy, Shurup, young, Hyut. At the same time, I affectionately whispered in her ear with a soft voice. Elga.nim, I like you. That, Hugh. It seemed that Elga couldn't answer anymore. Did her bodyguards know that the lioness family's iron-blooded maiden, who fiercely dominated the battlefield, was being conquered by Theo Gospel on a different type of front like this? Elga.nim, would you believe that I had dreamed of being with you like this ever since we first met? Considering that this was part of the act, I was able to say things which I would normally never say. There were prompts saying that the experience of Casanova and actor increased, but I ignored those and focused on something else. I aimed my broadsword at the smoothness between Elga's legs. Jilguk, jiguk. The M-shaped gap between Elga's legs was already so wet that foreplay no longer became needed. Of course, this represented Elga's passion. It was said that women who lacked azul experience might not get wet well due to tension. But Elga, who had only gone through lots of caresses after a post.fella.io, seemed ready to accept a man. Had she ever turbated alone? Elga was the type who liked to use her body and be physical, to the point that she would fight on the battlefield. In fact, I might have heard that women with higher lib.do than others regularly turbated. Maybe her HUN was already loosened. Elga.nim, have you ever touched this place before? What? What are you asking? Hearing that, Elga started flailing her legs around wildly. When I caught them, she covered her face with a blanket. Why are you so good at this? Do you have any experience? No. It's also my first time. I'm actually very nervous. I grabbed Elga's hand and put it to my heart, which was beating so fast that I began to feel dizzy. Elga didn't say anything, her face remained hidden by the blanket. Slowly, I began to move my waist. The feeling of my johns rubbing against her wet ussy was pretty good. Hyut, the image of Elga gently turning her head to the side and trying to ignore the situation under the covers, was pretty cute. But I wanted to see her face, so I pulled the blanket away. I decided to give Elga, who was restless because of her embarrassment, a lip service. Elga.nim, please accept me. I will train hard. Of course, I had no intention of doing anything like training. Even if I did, my skills wouldn't improve. But Elga might like to hear that. In fact, it felt like the tension on her body actually loosened. Was this enough? I slowly lifted my upper body and took in a bird's-eye view of Elga's body. Ragged chest. Wide open legs. Flushed red face. The scene was perfect. This was my throne. Both the left and right. Grabbing Elga's thighs and spreading them wider to the side, I then proceeded to rub my johns between her eager and blushing ussy. Elga's ussy was surprisingly bare, without any hint of hair. The lips of her vag.na puffed up and were slightly opened. However, it was clean, without any trace of use. Most of her cii.oris was covered by the hood. I was curious to see how it would react upon being uncovered. Hoo. Then, I saw Elga catching her breath. Further stimulation by touching her ussy would be nice, but then Elga might get too embarrassed and refuse to have sex. The caresses were enough for now. It would be better to just end with the insertion while she was still in a dreamy state. How far could I go? Was this really possible? Despite being accustomed to pain, Elga might still stop everything because of the discomfort from her first time. Without expecting much, I carefully tucked the tip of my dick between Elga's thick labia and into her slightly opened hole. The process was not as difficult as I thought. Jilgok. Yuyut. At that moment, Elga felt the pain and tried to close her legs. Did she still feel that much pain despite being so wet? Well, it might hurt more if she kept her legs shut. It's better to have your legs spread open. So I grabbed her beautiful ankles with both hands and spread them farther to the sides. Yut, be quiet. What is this? What are you doing? Dalgak. In the process, her glass shoes came off and started rolling on the cheap-in floor, but it didn't matter. Elga.nim, I'm so happy right now. I think I could die. To be able to become one with Elga.nim like this. Yugyuk, Hu. It appeared that Elga was not in the mood to answer my confession. Kissing might help ease the pain. Seeing Elga's increasingly contorting face, I lowered my head again and kissed her. Elga also responded passively to my kiss. Kairup, Shururup. Shurup. Kairup. Maybe she was trying to forget the pain by focusing on our kiss. Anyway, it actually worked, and my sword suddenly came into contact with a barrier in its path. Wait, what? T/N join the D.D, here, for illustrations, discussions and more. Chapter 36.1 You are listening at novelfull.audio. 19, EP.36.1, Pride of the Beast number 5036, Pride of the Beast number 5 Something soft and elastic touched the tip of my sensitive johns. It could only be described as some kind of membrane. Maybe it was the Hun men. I heard that this was every man's fantasy, since it signified a woman's chastity. Wasn't it something like that? Anyway. I had no experience in tearing the Hun men. However, the feeling on my johns was certainly very pleasant. Elga, on the other hand, frowned more and more. Yugyuk, yuhu. Did it still hurt? But she was wriggling in delight with her drenched vag.na, so it must be a complex mix of pleasure and pain. Sururururik. Elga held onto the duvet of the bed as tightly as possible, like a child on a ride holding onto the seatbelt for their dear life. This could only mean one thing. She had resolved herself to something. Therefore, I decided to pierce through Elga's Hun men in one go. After all, it would not be good if she let go of this long-awaited resolution and changed her mind. Elga.nim, I like you so much. Sprinkling Elga's ears with sweet nothings, I slowly moved my waist and hips forward, digging into her body. At the same time, Elga's ussy was getting wider to accommodate my dick. What would outsiders think of this situation? Elga, spreading her legs wide, was being pressed under by a feminine-looking man. Not to mention that her ussy was getting drilled deeper. Wouldn't it look very lewd and obscene? It would have been nice if I was able to take pictures with a camera or something. This was, after all, a monumental first experience for both me and Elga. Jill. Gawk, you hoot, I can't. Hey, wait a minute. This, no. Hut. Was Elga scared of losing her hun men? Perhaps she was shocked that the precious and protected chastity of the young lady of the lioness family was finally being tainted by a man. Either way, Elga suddenly chickened out and tried to stop me. Of course, such resistance was meaningless now. After all, my Angmar maker was almost fully in. Do not worry, I won't be rough. That's not what I meant. EU, on. And, almost everything has already been inserted. The hun men is torn. With this, Elga.nim is no longer a verg.n. I'm no longer. Elga's flushed and red face had a complicated expression. Well, that was normal. In this world where arranged marriage was the norm, the verg.90 of aristocratic women held more value. Hence, the nobility, especially women, were more rigorously educated about sexual matters. Elga would have been the same. In fact, her precious body was prized and protected. Naturally, there had been those who wanted to court the young lady of the lioness family. There were many nobles who wanted to marry Elga. What did Elga currently feel now that her verg.90 was taken by me, a humble slave? Despair. Humiliation. Shame. What if she found out that I was not just a slave, but the last descendant of the demon King Angmar? Would Elga start pushing me away with fierce resistance? Maybe even rip my head off with both her hands. I was literally a sheep in wolf skin amidst a pack of wolves. If they realized that I was a sheep, I would be eaten till no bone was left. That thought made me so excited that it felt like electricity went up my spine. This game of chicken, where you could die at any moment, was extremely thrilling. Jigak, sook. In the meantime, my cock was in Elga's ussy, down to the root. Hew. Elga was breathing heavily. Well, she did just accept my big dick, so it must be hard if she didn't take some deep breaths. Hew. Every time she breathed in, I would feel better inside the vag.na as it flinched and squeezed. Kook. Envied at the feeling of Elga's bumpy insides gripping my cock. Was quite pleasant. I just put a part of my body in her vag.na, yet it seemed like my whole body was wrapped in something soft, giving me goosebumps. Was this the magic of SX? No, SX, as far as I knew, consisted of strenuous movements. Piston movements. Therefore, I slowly moved my back and pulled my sword out to complete the segs. Chwop, jigak. My cock. Then slowly came out of her tightly clinging vag.nal walls. Yuk, young. At the same time, Elga gripped the sheets even more tightly. Her wide-open legs twitched and convulsed, while her mouth echoed slight but sweet moans. Was she starting to feel more pleasure now that the pain of her torn hun men had begun to fade? To begin with, Elga was a lewd girl who got wet with just the fella.io. Elga.nim, let's feel good together. What kind of line was that? It was so boring. Was this really the best I could come up with? Then again, Elga probably wasn't even listening right now. It feels like, young, hut. EU, on. I slowly moved my dick back and forth, tucking it into Elga's ussy. The sound that came out of Elga's mouth every time I did so was very pleasant to hear. Chowpak, chowpak, chowpak. The collision between flesh and flesh created a vivid sound, one that I had never heard in my life. At the same time, the large wrists peeking out from Elga's red dress caught my attention. Cholrong, cholrong. Every time I moved my waist, her chest would shake to the beat. Seeing this, I pulled her dress down so that I could get a better look, revealing her pink N.PPAES to the world. I've longed for Elga.nim and we've finally become one. I'm really happy, ong, hang, ong, yuhu, huyuong, yut, hang, how, ing. Elga didn't seem to care that her chest was exposed. To think that I was worried, in many ways, as to how our first time would go. Was I surprisingly talented at this? Hyuk, ha, hang, hot. Then, I saw Elga weeping. Was she crying from the pain of her torn Hun? Was she saddened by the fact that she lost her Verg.90? I didn't know. However, the tears and Elga's vulnerable act, which contrasted her fierce personality, was so exciting and thrilling that I couldn't stop pistoning. I leaned my upper body, as if embracing her, and clung myself to Elga. Her red dress felt like an obstruction. However, Elga's warm and smooth body smelled indescribably good. It was, indeed, nice to hug. T/N, advanced chapters are available, here. Chapter 36.2 You are listening at Novel Full.audio. 19, EP.36.2, Pride of the Beast number 5036, Pride of the Beast number 5 Oh dear. I was about to burst. I already felt the need to release as soon as I penetrated Elga's tight ussy. In fact, my Sul desire had been boiling ever since I was given the fella.io. Elga.nim, we will continue to be together in the future. I swear. Hyung, ong, you swear. Like an oath. Ong at. It was my first time, should I see you inside? Elga was in a woozy state right now, I didn't know if she'd notice or mind. Also, since I wanted to get her pregnant, see you Ming outside was out of the question. Alright. Let's make you pregnant. After whispering so softly that Elga couldn't even hear it. Jikak. I hugged Elga's waist tightly and shoved my dick in the deepest part of her ussy, as if piercing through her body. Ong. After that, I spilled my men with everything I got. Bury it. Sowing one's seeds inside a woman. The pleasure given by this primal act was so great that I felt like my head was about to explode. An incomparable amount of semen overflowed, incomparable to the times I turbated alone. Hoot. Hugh, there's something hot. Hugh, what did you do? Guess you really can't hide this type of thing, can you? However, if I surrendered to Elga now, everything that I had done while acting like a man would be meaningless. Thus, I needed to be more aggressive in taming Elga. And so, while removing my cock. After the ejaculation, I immediately grabbed her thin ankle and turned her around. You heard that right. I pulled her .ss and pushed the drooling .ussy towards me. Her pretty .s was being displayed for me to see. Jilchuk, jururuk. How could a woman's body get so wet? Anyway, my erect .on was looking good. Okay, the second round shouldn't be too hard. Then I simply inserted my dick into Elga's ussy. Jilkok suguk. This time, the insertion was much easier than the first. Elga, who accepted it, also seemed to feel much more pleasure. Young. It was tightening up. You, this guy, you dare put me in this kind of position. Isn't this beast-like? Members from the lioness family are lions, so I thought maybe you like being treated like a beast from behind like this. Not at all, hey, not this. Hang, aat. She insisted on no. But I could feel her vag.na gripping my dick. Even tighter than before. Was this how sex with women felt? Indeed, the tightening gave me a completely different feeling. It was difficult to move. Which could only mean one thing. Elga liked to get ked from behind. I originally thought that Elga was a sadist who liked to bully others. And yet, she was responding positively to humiliation and bullying. Nut, huyut, hung, no, in this beastly position, hyut. I continued drilling Elga from behind. Pang, pang. Chowpak, chowpak. Jikakok, jigak. The feeling of my groin hitting the soft and squishy butt was very good. The only flaw was that the bed was now wet and damp. How barbaric, slave-like posture. Jigak, jilgok. Sugak, sugak, sugak. It was also very nice to see the pink flesh inside the vag.na being sucked out little by little. I even tried to touch Elga's twitching and .s, but I held back the urge because it was still too early. Instead, I lightly slapped Elga's .ss. Hayak. Elga made a noise like a little chick. Not only that, but her vaginal wall also got so tight that I was surprised. Chalsak. Hyuk. Hyuhu, hyung, forgive, I won't forgive you, hyut. If only I have strength on my waist, you. It was also very exciting to see the high and mighty Elga helplessly accepting my dick. Like a slave while moaning. So I reached under her tummy, grabbed her two breasts, and pulled her nies down. Hyung, hot, hot. The view of her chest bouncing up and down was also the best. God, how could something feel so good? There was no way I could not do this every day. I just had to do it. Elga.nim's body is really warm and soft. Does Elga.nim feel good? I feel, nothing, not good at all. Something like this. Ha. It's different than I thought, no. If you really didn't feel good, you could have just rejected it. This was obviously a lie. You think that I would fall for that? Jilgok, jigak. 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 BDNVL.m, yut, hugh, just get it over with. Just let it end. I won't leave you alone after this, really, I won't let this go, Theo goes.ueu, you, hup, luju. Hugh. But, it was cute. I didn't know if this could be called physical affection. But Elga's soft skin was starting to feel really nice and lovely. Affection. It was a disadvantage for Theo Gospel's survival. I didn't know what would change in the future, so I tried not to bond with people as much as possible. For example, if the girl I liked got caught up in some sort of incident, I would be depressed. No, it wouldn't just end in sadness. What if Elga, who had united as one with me, got injured or seriously hurt? Would I really be able to keep my composure or become a villain, like the demon monk Theo, the descendant of the demon king? I honestly wasn't sure. But it couldn't be helped. Knowing that human warmth was so gentle and soft. A vulnerable person like me would easily succumb. Jigak, jilgok, jigak. Jigak. Anyway, for now, let's just focus on Elga's .ss. Speaking of which, Elga buried her head into the cheap duvet and chewed, as she suffered both humiliation and pleasure. Her chest was so large that I could even see it from behind her back. On the other hand, her bosom fat devoured my cock. As if having a delicious meal. It just stretched and shrunk from side to side. Cute, it's too tight. Hoot, hugh, hyung. Ong. Elga didn't seem to have the energy to speak anymore. But just as I was tightly holding Elga's .ss and spreading it to both sides, thinking about ejacu.ating again. Knock, knock, knock. Excuse me, dear guests. Someone is looking for you downstairs. T/N, advanced chapters are available on .I, here. Chapter 37.1. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 19, EP.37.1, Rival number 1037, Rival number 1, T/N. Illustration. Link. https://drive.google.com/drive/folders/1qmqtjlv5z77s0tsbtushdlng73jscv4. People would blank out whenever they were stressed. It was due to the cluttered brain, just like a faulty computer. When such a degree became severe, it would be expressed with, "My head has turned white." I was well aware that it was by no means just an exaggeration. Because my head was now white. Excuse me, dear guests. A high-status woman is looking for you below. I think you should come down and see her. Knock, knock, knock. Someone knocked on the door where we were staying. It was probably the innkeeper. Thinking so, I hurriedly got up. Sook. At the same time, my long cock was removed from Elga's ussy, causing various fluids to leak out. Ugh, what's going on? It seemed that Elga was also perplexed. Elga and I rushed to get dressed. However, since my shirt had been torn by Elga earlier, I had to put the robe over my bare skin. It was a little rough, but that was not the important thing right now. Ugh, my waist. Elga trembled like a newborn deer and slowly adjusted her dress. It appeared that she was not able to move easily, so I put on the dress for her and tightened the corset at the back. Elga, now fully dressed, asked the person outside. Who is looking for me? Are you sure you got the right person? Yes. Aside from my lady, our inn currently has no other pretty blonde woman in a red dress. If it's a pretty blonde woman, then you're right to look for me. Would you please go downstairs? The lady seems very angry. Tension, bewilderment and anxiety could be heard from the innkeeper's voice. Based on the sense of urgency, should I say that it sounded like he didn't want to be swept up in something bad? Who? I took a few breaths to cool my head, which had been overheated by the previous excitement. I needed to think calmly. Be sober. First of all, let's point out why I was so anxious. The reason was because of the lady that appeared right below. I thought maybe it was Aira. It was difficult to imagine what would happen if the current situation was discovered by Queen Aira, who had come all the way here. That thought alone made me drastically aged and grew white hairs. However, if you thought about it, didn't Aira say that she was going to read books in her room all day today? So, what was the probability that Aira suddenly changed her schedule? But, if it was not Aira, then who was the lady seeking us? There were many possibilities. Yet, in the end, the only answer was to go down and figure out the problem. You have calmly judged the situation. You have gained experience points through the talent calm thinking. All job experience +5. Just as the worries that had been floating around began to subside, several words flashed in front of my eyes. You have successfully defiled the purity of a noble. Job. Casanova 1+ level Casanova LV 5 LV 6. You are able to practice some more lewd things. You showed great skill in breaking the will of your opponent. Job. Tutor 1+ level Tutor LV 3 LV 4. Slightly increased the chance of breaking through the opponent's mental defense. Maybe it was because of the recent love affair, but my level had risen a lot. I didn't know whether everyone could climb the ladder this well or I was just receiving some kind of bonus due to my Angmar's blood. Anyway, the important thing right now was to go down and assess the situation. If Aira was the one who visited, it would be best to quickly figure out where and how far she knew, before making a plan. Elga.nim, relax here for a while. I'll go down first and see the situation. Are you telling me to hide behind you? Why should I do that? I don't know who it is, but if she dares call me Yut Togak. Elga took a step and flinched. At the same time, I could see something transparent dripping down her slender ankle before dropping onto the floor. It was probably not normal, BDNV Elga then said while stroking her lower belly. Did Aira come? If Aira is here, you should keep what you just did with me a secret. No, keep it a secret from everyone, even if it's not Aira, okay? A secret. Yes. It's not yet the time to show your claws to the world, alright. Then, you go down first. I opened the door and descended to the tavern's first floor along with the serious-looking innkeeper. The image of bustling tavern patrons with black-robed people in the center greeted me. Hurry up. Bring that lioness girl before me. Wait, what? This was surprising. The person leading the black-robed figures was a woman I could never have imagined. She wore a chestnut robe and had hanging silver hair. Under her robe were a blouse and a tie, bulging to the shape of her chest. She also had a short skirt and stockings. A uniform. Maybe, a school uniform. It must be the school uniform of the Ark Academy. This was definitely an Ark student. But, what did an Ark student have to do with Elga? I quickly scanned the woman's face with my fairy eyes. Although she looked as young as a high school student, her red eyes were so intense that I felt chills. It was like facing a cold-blooded beast. After all, red eyes were synonymous with the most dangerous bunch. Overall, she was a great beauty with a noble air, but I didn't know her. Rather, I felt relieved that she wasn't Aira. Ah. It was then that I discovered the reptile-shaped brooches adorning the shoulders of everyone in the group. Maybe this situation wasn't so fortunate after all. Because what I saw was a silver dragon brooch. And there was only one power in this world that used dragons as heraldry. It was the Draco family. Among the four great families, theirs was comparable to the likes of Angmar along with Tarantara, Lioness and Bellhawk. The young lady of the Draco family was here. Along with Tarantara, Lioness and Bellhawk, the Dracos was considered one of the great houses which were the pillars of the Angmar kingdom. And, this girl was a Draco. Chwak. The young lady of the Draco family then said, while pointing with a black fan. Come on, bring me that rude lioness. It was a calm and still voice, yet filled with anger. Then, behind me, someone passed through the crowd, shaking the floor. It was Elga.